Welcome to episode 4 of Starline Activations. If you are new here, I'm an astrologer, I'm a mystic, I'm a mother, and I'm also a woman who has been through some spirals of my own. And this is the place where I weave that all together. The sky, the soul, and the very human experience of waking up. I'm very happy that you are here. So let's dive right into today's episode because I want to start somewhere a little bit unexpected today. We will go into the energy and the activation of the Taurus New Moon, but I do not want to start with the chart. I want to start with something that has been moving through me, like a feeling, like an observation. And I have a feeling that it might ring very true to others as well, because more and more I've been starting to notice how the most profound cosmological teachings are found in just living life. Not through books, not through digging into charts, but just going through day-to-day life. So before we touch the astrology today, I want to talk about something that I have been thinking about myself. And I invite you not to try to figure it out yet. Just feel into it, whether it resonates or not. And then later on, after the episode, leave me a comment. And let me know what you actually thought and if it resonated true for you. Because today I want to talk about the mother. It has been Mother's Day just a few days ago. And around these days, just thoughts and insights just came to me. And I want to share that today on this podcast. And before actually sharing the insights, I do want to mention that on the 31st of May, I will be hosting an event together with 3 lovely ladies. It will be a live oracle activation. This will also be the launch of the oracle deck, Oracle of the 13 Mothers. It is all about the mother frequency. The links are completely available right now, so I will put them in the notes. You can sign up. It's completely free. It will be an hour and a half of sharing magic through different tools of intuition. And yes, I would love to see you there. But right now, let's talk about the mother. Because whether you are a mother or not, we all know a mother and we all came from a mother. So this connects to everyone in a way. Because think about what happens when a woman becomes a mother. Like really think about it. Before, she was a self. A woman with a life that she has been building, and she has passions and she has things that she loves, and maybe she loves to sing and to dance and to go out, or maybe she loves to paint or to read. It doesn't matter, but she loves certain things, and she has a rhythm and a structure for what, for example, a typical Tuesday would look like for her. And whether she is aware of it or not, there is this whole self-project, a whole self-identity that she's weaving daily and she's creating daily. And then that same woman becomes a mother. And a child arrives, and in the most abrupt and explosive way, she is experiencing love, like a complete opening of love. And everything, and I really, really mean like everything, reorganizes around that child. And that doesn't come with a choice of how we usually think of choices, because nature truly takes over. It is a total reorganization of reality. And the self that was being so carefully addressed and so carefully attended to before, that version of her that was built over years and that had preferences and that had things that she loved and had a certain way of expressing it herself, it just dissolves. And not as abrupt as the birth of her child, not in this dramatic, fast way, but it dissolves slowly by 1,000 little small surrenders. And it starts when she wakes up. She forgets to make her favorite tea. She forgets to eat. She forgets what she was just thinking about 5 minutes ago. And most importantly, she forgets in a way what and how she was before even the child arrived. And what you wanted before becoming a mother, that is not being remembered at all. And her passions, they are paused. The dancing and the singing, it stops. And that rhythm of what her typical Tuesday would look like, that is just forever gone. Everything, and I mean everything in her world is her baby. And she wouldn't even want it any other way. Her baby, that is her world. And everything is just this amazing love that is consuming her whole identity. So anything that she thought she wanted before is now just her baby and the love for her baby. And while I was thinking back to this of when I became a mother, even after having already gone through some spirals of awakening, I realized what nobody says clearly, but everyone feels. But that is exactly why I want to put it into words. The 1,000 little small surrenders and that whole experience, it is actually an ego death, a complete dissolution of the self. And society doesn't call it that. Society calls it being a good mother. But what is actually happening during the sleep deprivation and running on a complete empty battery is actually one of the most radical spiritual initiations a human being can go through. Because think about it, the dissolution of the self in service to something larger than the self, that we do know in spiritual language. But what I also want to mention is that then something slowly but surely starts to shift. First just internally, like little seeds in the ground, but the mother is starting to return. She starts to do things for herself again. She starts to dance again. She starts to sing. She might look in the mirror and see more than the mother of the baby. And she might think like, oh, let me wear this instead of my comfy outfit. The very human things, the very ordinary things, the same things that she did before. But here's the thing, she is not the same person as she was before. She might be doing the same things, making the same dance move, but from a completely different point of place within herself. Because she had been dissolved, but came back. And even if she doesn't quite have the words for it, she knows, I am not the one I used to be. I am me and then some, like an upgraded version almost. And even if this sounds a little bit contradicting, because physically, externally, it might not reflect that way, but she is a freer version of herself because she knows what it is like to give up. She knows what 1,000 surrenders feel like. And in that state, she ultimately experiences liberation. And do you feel where this is going? Because where I really want to go is to awakening. The spiritual awakening that most of us on this path have experienced and also continue to do so. The moment or moments when something abruptly opens, when you just couldn't go back to seeing things the way you used to see them before. Because what in that moment happened for you? You probably went in deeply, you dove in deeply. It might have been into astrology, human design, Akashic records, shadow work, like you name it. Everything suddenly felt like a code ready to be decoded, a truth to be found beneath the surface, beneath all the ordinary things. And you dove in and you expanded and you discovered more than you knew you could hold. And it was overwhelming, but it was beautiful at the same time. And it was terrifying, but you really couldn't stop. Because when you truly awaken, you become almost obsessive with finding yourself. Finding that higher truth, finding the thread. What is real? Who am I really? And what is life? And the most question I hear, like, what is the higher purpose of it all? And in that almost obsession, like that obsessive state, in diving in, the old self is falling away. The personality becomes like this layer, like almost like a transparent layer. And you start to see your patterns, and the old life, it doesn't fit anymore. And the things that you used to care about, like some of those things, they just feel like hollow all of a sudden. And the conversations that you used to have all of a sudden feel a little bit strange. And something like the old self and the old identity, the ego is dissolving just like it did for the mother. It's just a different approach to it. But if you really think about it, it's both dissolving of the identity. And then, and this is what I'm really trying to point at, is you start to come back. you start the ordinary things again. You go shopping again, perhaps, or you go dancing again. You sit in a cafe and you feel the sun on your face and you think, this is also it. This is also the higher purpose, the very human things, like having those small pleasures and then having that ordinary Tuesday. And from outside, it could look like, oh, she lost something. She's going backwards. Like you gave up on depth and you are going back to the surface. But that's only true if you are seeing life as a line. And this is something that is so connected to, for example, my oracle deck. And this is also so connected to the work that I do, because this right here I really want to share from my heart, because most people in our lives will still live with linear time. You might even catch yourself sometimes really thinking of life in a linear way, and I know I do. And I don't mean that living with linear time is like checking the clock. What I really mean is to understand life as a line moving forward, like that growth would mean moving ahead, and that maturity means not going back. And in this model of time, returning to something like dancing again or enjoying the simple pleasures again, wanting the ordinary things in life, could be seen then from that point of view of linear time as a setback, like literally going backwards. And this is what I'm really wanting to point at, because what if time is not a line at all? This is something that the ancients knew already. And I mean many different lineages of ancients all over the world and across centuries, they knew this. The Celts, for example, they viewed time as a spiral, where past, present, and future is coexisting and influencing one another. And they have this metaphor for the internal flow of life, emphasizing that every ending is actually a new beginning. And the Mayan calendar, for example, they understood that life is not a line, but as well a spiral, flowing in living cycles that invite you to experience time almost like a ceremony. In the Mayan traditions, they teach that time is not just ticking forward, but it is like a spiral to move within. And these are more than just metaphors. They really carry cosmological maps, all pointing back to you return to the same point in the spiral, but you will return to it from a different altitude. You will recognize the view, but you will not be where you were, because you have gone through another spiral of awakening. And the dance move might be the same. The being who is making the dance move is remade, like they went through a rebirth, and that is the spiral. Not just a circle, because a circle brings you back to the exact same point where you were, and then you do it again. But and not as a line, because then it would mean that you would always just move forward and you would never return. But what I mean is truly as a spiral, the same angle, but from a higher frequency, and the same move, but carried with so much deeper presence, and the same dancing, but with like almost a freer body, and the same ordinary life, but a liberated soul that is moving through it. And this is exactly what I mean when I speak of spirals of awakening, because awakening is not one moment. It is a spiral after a spiral after a spiral, and you dissolve and you return and you live it, and then something opens again and you dissolve again and you return again. But every time that you do, it's not like just a repetition, because every time you see things from a higher perspective, and every time it's more integrated, and every time it is more free. And each time that you return to the ordinary becomes actually more sacred than it was before. And that is not because the ordinary changed. Like the dancing probably stays the same, and that cafe and sitting in the sun, it stays the same, but you have changed. So your experience of it changed. And the tarot, it knows this, for example, as well, because the Wheel of Fortune is card 10, and it collapses to 1, the eternal beginning, the spiral returning to its original point, but higher. And why I'm mentioning also this card right now under this new moon is because it has the symbols of the 4 fixed signs. Taurus representing the great turning to what has always been, not luck, not chance, but really as a cosmological map. The wheel moves and you will return, and what determines everything is not where you are landing, but whether you have become someone who moves with the wheel. And another teaching that really resembles this spiral of awakening, and I really loved hearing about this, and so I want to share it because that is the Zen teaching. And they used to ask a question in storytelling to break the mind out of linear thinking. They used to say, drawing water and carrying firewood. And most have heard maybe this, like, before someone is enlightened, chop wood, carry water. After someone is enlightened, chop wood, carry water. And so the student is asking the master, what does one do before becoming enlightened? And the master is answering, chop wood, carry water. And then the student is asking, but what does someone then do after they are enlightened? And the master answers again, chop wood, carry water. And it sounds a little bit like a riddle or like a disappointment, like, okay, so it just stays the same even after going through all of it, and I'm someone completely new, I'm still doing the same. And yes, but also not at all that, because it appears like nothing has changed on the outside. The visible, the external actions of chopping wood and then carrying water, yes, those are the same, but the presence, the awareness, the perception, that is completely changed. So before enlightenment, you chop wood and you carry water, but you might secretly wish to get out of it, and you are not really present within those moments, and you are already thinking of something ahead, like, oh, why I have to do this? I want to go on to the next thing. And this teaching is suggesting that after enlightenment, you see that there is nothing more important than chopping wood and carrying water. All activities are of purpose. All activities carry meaning, and there is no preference, and that's what it's pointing at. So you do the same, but with completely different eyes, which then creates a completely different experience. And that's why when I heard about this, I was really understanding how they explain this teaching in order to help people to really move out of linear thinking. And the ordinary is not a problem to be solved. It is actually life, and all of it is sacred. And I feel like that is what making the spiral more embodied. This is what it looks like to really return from the inside. So bringing this back to the mother, because the mother, she already has this map, and the mother who has been through the dissolution of the self in early motherhood and then began to return to herself, she already walked this spiral, and she might not realize it, but she has lived what many spiritual seekers are trying to find, and she has already experienced an ego death and radical surrender in a way, and a slow sacred return to this ordinary life. She already discovered that path, and that dancing on the other side is not dancing as before, and she knows that within her body. And I also found that most spiritual traditions have made this knowledge esoteric, like the mother of creation. It is hidden in monasteries and encoded in charts and systems and often it really takes years to study in order to access this. But the mother goes through that initiation through her body. To give a few examples of how you see this in esoteric knowledge, because we see this also with Isis in ancient Egypt and the Black Madonna in southern France. Isis gathered all pieces of Osiris, and from that dissolution, from that ego death, she did not just become a mother, but she became the archetype of the one who goes into the darkest, into the dark dissolution, and then returns with the knowledge of resurrection. And she resurrects Osiris just enough time to conceive Horus, and then she raises him alone, in which can be seen as a form of sacrifice. And then the Black Madonna, who is put into hidden chapels of Southern France, she's holding a very similar transmission in a way, because she became the Dark Mother, the one who has been through the underground, who carries wisdom, and not despite her darkness, but really because of her darkness. And I don't see these as just religious images, because they are encoded maps of the feminine spiral, and they are hidden in plain sight. It's just the way you choose to look at it. And sometimes I actually wonder, like these statues, while they are being worshipped by millions and millions of people, I actually wonder if it was actually this what was explained to these worshippers, and how they choose to perceive this hidden knowledge in plain sight. So what I'm really trying to share here is that without practice and without preparation, the mother who has been raising a small child, who has been nurturing a baby, she has already lived this. And nobody has ever turned to her and said, what you just went through was an initiation. And what you just came back from, that was a dissolution, an ego death. And what you are beginning to do now, like how you are trying to reach yourself again by dancing again, wanting things again, that is actually a sacred return. In a way that is a spiral completing, because you are not going back, you are going forward. The shape of it just looks different. And then ultimately you go on next spirals. And in a way, I feel like this is such a deep wisdom of the feminine. I feel what is not shared enough about the hidden wisdom of the feminine path is that the body, through one of the most extreme experiences of birth and dissolution and return, like the body already knows the cosmology. It already is living the spiral. It doesn't need to be taught anything from outside. It doesn't need to do the studies or to really absorb all this knowledge from books. Of course, that is very important, and a lot of people love it. But what I'm pointing at is that it's not necessarily needed. Only like to move within and to truly recognize within that what you are already knowing and what you are already feeling, and the mother instinct, for example, that it is all very true. That is what people like, that recognition. That is very powerful. To me it is. To me that makes a huge difference on this inward path. And on top of all of this, I do want to mention something important, because sometimes something looks like a sacred return, like going back to dancing, going back to the ordinary pleasures. But I do want to also build in the discernment that we always should challenge ourselves with, is this actually a sacred return? Or are we, or are we trying to exit something? Are we trying to walk away with something? And I'm not saying this from a judgmental point of view. I'm saying it more from the point of view of that we always have to carry that discernment. And a question that you can ask yourself within these spirals is, did something irreversibly change? If the answer is yes, if you cannot go back to where you were before, if you cannot go back to how you did things before, how you saw things before, then yes, something has really shifted, and that is, like going back into a sacred return. But if nothing has really shifted, if nothing has irreversibly changed, then maybe check in with yourself. Like, is there more integration required? And that's not bad. That's human. But this is how we do build in that discernment for ourselves. And now I would like to share with you how this is actually such a big part of this new moon in Taurus, how this is part of the new moon in Taurus activation, because all of this, every word is exactly what the sky is asking of us right now, because Taurus is the sign of returning to earth. After Aries, the fire, the initiation, the breaking open, the impulse, Taurus is what makes it real. Taurus is where it is really gardened after, and where the breakthrough is then living in the body. And this new moon, the sun and the moon together in Taurus, with Mercury so close by, it is really slowing the mind into the body, into the knowing, into the cosmically timed invitation to be exactly where you are, to find the extraordinary in the ordinary, to really dance again as if it was for the first time, and to be okay to want ordinary things without even apologizing for it, to make the human, to be as the human, to make that sacred. Taurus is what is making the spiral touch the earth. It is the sign of the return in a way, because the moment after fire where something says, okay, and now land, now be here, now let what you have been going through become actually something real, something rooted, something that you can actually live inside. So this whole story is not a coincidence. In a way, it is the zodiac encoding the spiral. And every single year, we have this opportunity in the sky with going from the cycle of the Aries new moon into the cycle of the Taurus new moon. And the mother who is starting to dance again, she is in a way then the living Taurus, the one who has been awakened and now sitting inside that cafe with the sun of her face. She is the living Taurus. So really going into this new moon, the sun and the moon, they are meeting in the sky at 25 degrees of Taurus at 7:30 p.m. CET on the 16th of May. And Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac. It is the earth sign. It really wants stability and comfort and pleasure. And it is very strong, but also very stubborn. And this earthy sign is ruled by the planet Venus, which means that whatever Venus is doing in the sky at the moment of the new moon, we want to pay attention to it. So Venus is the one holding the keys to this lunation. And she's really setting the tone. And Venus is actually sitting at 27 degrees of Gemini. And that by itself is already interesting, because while Taurus is very steady and very rooted, Gemini likes to move. So a Venus in Gemini likes to have options. She likes to communicate, and she likes to put words to things, like to see something from more than one angle at once. So the ruler of this very grounded and very earthy new moon is actually an air. She's actually thinking and speaking and moving between different possibilities. And this Venus in Gemini is also talking to Chiron and Mars in Aries, who are holding hands in the sky at 28 degrees of Aries. And I feel like that is really changing everything, because it adds a very deep layer to this new moon and how this Venus is being expressed right now. Because 28 degrees is almost the last degree of a sign, so it's critical. It's a critical degree. That is a very mature Aries. It is Aries energy that has been already through some battles. This is not like this young, impulsive fire, early Aries. No, this is a warrior who has been to the field already for a long time and knows what it cost. And sitting right there at that same degree is Chiron, the wound, the place where it hurts, together with Mars, the planet of action, of courage, of moving forward. So it is the place where the wound and the warrior meet together, side by side, at the end of fire. And what I feel brings up is a wound that is not new, wounds that have been already there for some battles and that are now in plain sight. We don't just feel them, we want to work with them. Mars is giving us the courage to take action on them. And then with this beautiful aspect, like this flowing aspect to Venus in Gemini, that is actually giving us clarity in the mind, the strength to communicate about it, but also to have options. I feel like rather than it just being this or that, it gives the energy of it is this and it is that, and both are true at the same time. However, it can also bring up a feeling of throwing salt on an open wound. Chiron and Mars together in Aries does not give a soft feeling. It is not gentle. But what I do feel is that whatever comes in front now is one of the last battles. This wound has been asking for your attention for a long time, and under this new moon, in this steady holding ground of Taurus, I think finally the earth beneath you can finally hold it. And because Taurus is understanding that nothing real happens in just one single moment, it is really part of a larger map. Taurus builds very steadily, and I work with the new moon in two ways. One for the month ahead, from this Taurus new moon until the Gemini new moon, but also for the 6 months ahead, because the intentions we are setting today around this new moon in Taurus, in terms of manifestations, it goes beyond the lunar cycle. It also goes into the year cycle, but with giving a large clarity on it on the full moon in Taurus. So I'm going to give you a few days to note down, and don't worry, because I will put them in the episode details so you can just screenshot them. But by setting your intentions today, I would invite you to also really pay attention to what happens on the following days, because those days in this lunar cycle will really give you an understanding of the bigger picture and the story that wants to unfold. And because it is a new moon in Taurus, whatever your intentions are going to be, it is going to build something steady. It's going to build something long term. It's going to build something very comfortable. So we really want to make use of this opportunity under this new moon in Taurus. Okay, so the dates are, well, the new moon itself, 16th of May. That is the moment where we plant the seed, where we set the intention, and then we go to the 23rd of May, which is the first quarter moon in Virgo. And that day something challenging might come up, like a moment where you want to redefine maybe the intentions, or like a little piece of information regarding your intentions. It might come up. So we want to write down, okay, what is happening on the 23rd of May. And then the 31st of May is the full moon in Sagittarius. That is where we really receive clarity around our intentions. We will see the higher purpose around the intentions that we are setting under the new moon. And then the 8th of June is the last quarter moon in Pisces. And that is where we shed and we release. It is coming into completion. And then if we want to take this even bigger, like what I mentioned, seeing this beyond just this lunar cycle, I would pay attention to the 26th of October under the full moon in Taurus, because that is where you will see what was truly planted today. It is like this moment of harvesting the intentions. And I do want to make also the note that if tracking this type of cycles and this type of spirals in a way, if that is catching your attention, then please leave me a comment below, because I can dedicate an episode specifically on this, going more into depth. So with that, a lot of information, and I would ask you to slow down, to take a moment to wind down for a second, and to let all this information just settle in your body. If you have the chance, maybe sit down or close your eyes if you can. If not, no worries. Just pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to your body and to your energy, how you are holding your energy. And just slow down that way. And I invite you to visualize a spiral and think back to how your spiral started and what has undeniably changed since then. What are you looking at from such a different point of view right now? And at the same time, what are you still doing daily, but with completely different eyes? Because that right there is a clue to what wants to be part of your seed under this new moon. Thank you for listening. If this resonated, leave that in the comments below. Until the next one, the full moon in Sagittarius. Until then.